Rich Tarani with TMC. We're at Cloud Expo 2012. We're at the Jacob Javits Center in Manhattan. Thanks for watching us today. We are speaking today with Wayne Ariolo, who's the VP of Strategy at Parasoft. And Wayne, welcome to the show and thank you for being here.
My pleasure, thank you for having me.
So starting at the top, tell us a little bit about what your company does, please.
Wonderful, so here we're at Cloud Expo as you imagined, and as you said, so we got a ton of great stuff going on. One of the major problems that we're experiencing, or organizations are experiencing as they're moving applications to the cloud, is they're now dealing not only with internal dependencies associated with their application, but the cloud also introduces these external dependencies associated with their applications. And what this means is it means havoc for your testers. It's not that easy at this point in time. You can imagine with all these things now scattered, all these resources scattered, how do you create a test environment? That's the main question. And that's what we do.
So you provide that test environment is what you do?
Absolutely. So if you can imagine this, we just did this great study, and in this study, it basically said for a single application, people usually have, or on average have, 20 dependencies associated with that application. So what this means for a tester is that I need 20 dependencies somehow aggregated into an environment in which I can now create a test for, right? That is almost impossible to do in some cases. Because let's say you're dealing with a mainframe, or a cloud-based application, or a third-party web service, or all these other great giant systems that are in organizations today. You need to be able to aggregate those resources and execute a test plan flawlessly. And this is what Parasoft Virtualize does. It allows you to actually capture the dependencies as a transaction, and then hold that transaction out as a virtualized asset. This virtualized asset can then be programmed in order to perform in any way possible, giving the tester or the developer an environment in which to test anytime, anywhere, which is perfect for cloud-based environments.
Now, when you think about it from a customer standpoint, is there a class of customer that might be, or a group of customer that might be more likely to need this sort of solution than others?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, by the way, because what we're finding is there's industries that have more dispersed type systems that they're involved with. So financial industry, for example, healthcare industry, for example, media companies, organizations in hospitality that rely on a tremendous amount of different inputs and feeds in order to give people the customer experience that they expect, right? All those create testing nightmares. What we're able to do at Parasoft with Parasoft Virtualize is hold those dependencies out as virtual services, and those virtual services can be aggregated into an environment, as you see here, and those environments can then be accessed with the dev guy or the QA guy to create tests or a test environment in order for them to do their job at any point in the day. Usually these guys are constrained by the fact that they have all these dependencies within the environment, and they can never quite aggregate them all together in a staged environment to execute a test. With our solution, which can be cloud-based, can be localized, gives them access to these types of resources anytime and anywhere.
Sounds to me that other groups of companies that could be potential customers are those that have gone through a lot of mergers and acquisitions, and they just happen to have dispersed systems that are maybe just legacy systems that they need to tap into for their solution.
That's a great point. So anybody who is looking at integration-based projects, looking to actually understand how systems work together, great opportunity for this type of solution to exercise that application prior to going live when that merger, acquisition, or cutover date happens from the system architecture.
Now, do people have to worry about Cloud Stack, OpenStack, those kinds of issues, frameworks, things like that? Or do you basically test everything and you don't have to worry about those sorts of issues?
So those can play and those can make differences in terms of latency and or performance associated with the virtual assets that we're managing. Yet, we're agnostic when it comes to those types of issues. But here's the good thing about our system. We can programmatically insert that type of performance issue, data issues into our stack or into the environments that you see here and allow you to test versus those types of assumptions associated with a platform, associated with an infrastructure stack or various providers.
Okay, so question I typically like to ask is just forward looking. What do you see in the future? What's next? Or maybe even trends you're seeing in the market, if you could answer all or some of those questions.
So we come from the perspective of the testing field. And we come from the perspective of software quality, which is somewhat rare and odd as you're sitting here in Cloud Expo. But from this perspective, I'm seeing three major themes going on. One, switching costs for applications are at an all-time low and they will decrease, meaning that application quality, software quality matters. The second thing is, being from the United States, what we do find is that the litigious nature of organizations will remain accelerated when it comes to application quality, security breaches, vulnerabilities, and application trust. So what we're finding today and what we see in the news constantly is more and more litigious issues popping up from application failure. That is going to increase the risk and also elevate the perception of quality when it comes to applications.
I should mention that that doesn't always show up in the news. There are a lot of cases of application failure where it's quiet and insurance companies handle it and
You're absolutely
it's
right.
not necessarily known about.
You're absolutely right, and they're the lucky ones.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that was number 2. What's number 3?
The last one is, I think the impact to software failure or security breaches is going to start hitting the C-level offices, right? So once that impact does elevate itself into the executive staff, it really comes down to a quality and process issue. And this is where Parasoft plays so well.
And I should also go back to number 2. If software companies do tend to have lawsuits where they're at fault and there are high payouts by the insurance company does one of a few things. They either jack up the rates or they basically tell the company they'll no longer insure them, which means they have to go now with this on their record and have to go to a much more expensive insurance or may even risk being insurable to protect their future potential problems with their software. So it's worth mentioning all that.
Oh, absolutely, and I think what you're actually alluding to here as well, and that's a great point, is that your brand is represented as software, and that software is the interface, whether it's your internet-based website, your transaction mechanism or backend, your company is represented by software, which also means that your developers and your engineers are making business decisions by writing code.
Now, I may have cut you off on this. What's next? Is there an answer for the what's next question?
You know, what's next is, and I do hope that this does happen, is a greater emphasis on the process associated with creating quality software.
Okay, thank you so much for your time.
No
Appreciate
problem,
it.
my pleasure.